Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Negotiations with President Putin and Zelensky are bearing fruit. President Trump still plans to buy Gaza, but without money, and a new task force will uncover the truth behind many mysteries. Okay, let's get into it. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is traveling to Ukraine this week as a test run for Russia-Ukraine ceasefire discussions. Ukrainian President Zelensky told the media on Monday that he would meet with visiting Trump administration key figures in Ukraine by Friday. In Monday's interview, President Zelensky emphasized that security without the U.S. is not real security. If the U.S. withdraws its support for Ukraine, Europe alone will not be able to fill the gap. President Zelensky said that he was ready to negotiate, but he wants Ukraine to do so from a position of strength. And he said that he would offer American companies lucrative reconstruction contracts and investment concessions to try and get President Trump on side. He said those who are helping us to save Ukraine will have the chance to renovate it with their businesses together with Ukrainian businesses. All these things we are ready to speak about in detail, and maybe that's why the U.S. Treasury Secretary would be one of the first major government officials to meet with Zelensky. President Trump confirmed in a post on Truth Social that Treasury Secretary Bessent will meet with Zelensky, and he suggested that the two leaders could discuss pathways to ending the conflict. President Trump said in a post, "This war must and will end soon. Too much death and destruction. The U.S. has spent billions of dollars globally with little to show. When America is strong, the world is at peace." President Trump's National Security Advisor Mike Waltz said on Sunday that the U.S. plans to establish partnerships with Ukraine in rare earths, natural resources, oil, and gas. Ukraine will also buy U.S. products so that the U.S. can gradually recoup the cost of its aid to Ukraine. President Trump's Ukrainian and Russian envoy, retired General Keith Kellogg, plans to present President Trump with a proposal to end the Russia-Ukraine war in the coming weeks. He also plans to listen to a wide range of officials during the Munich Security Conference, as well as during his visits to Kiev and other European countries. And earlier today, President Trump confirmed that he had a phone call with President Putin of Russia. The two countries will immediately begin negotiations to end the war in Ukraine. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that the two leaders spoke for about an hour and a half. President Trump posted on Truth Social saying, "We discussed Ukraine, the Middle East, energy, artificial intelligence, the power of the dollar, and various other subjects. We agreed to work together very closely, including visiting each other's nations. We've also agreed to have our respective teams start negotiations immediately, and we will begin by calling President Zelensky of Ukraine to inform him of the conversation." Immediately after speaking with Putin, President Trump called President Zelensky. In his next post on Truth Social, President Trump said the conversation went very well. He, like President Putin, wants to make peace. And U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also met with Ukraine's network of international backers in Belgium. During the meeting, Hegseth confirmed that Ukraine will not be invited into NATO and that there will be no U.S. troops in Ukraine.
The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. Instead, any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops. If these troops are deployed as peacekeepers to Ukraine at any point, they should be deployed as part of a non-NATO mission, and they should not be covered under Article 5. There also must be robust international oversight of the line of contact. To be clear, as part of any security guarantee, there will not be U.S. troops deployed to Ukraine.
He also warned that retaking all the territory that Ukraine has lost to Russia since 2014 is an unrealistic goal, and Hegseth insisted that Europe must take on a greater share of the burden of supporting Ukraine. An American, Mark Fogel, who was detained in Russia since 2021, returned to the United States on Tuesday. He was a history teacher who taught at the Anglo-American School in Moscow. He was arrested at a Russian airport in August of 2021 for drug possession, and he was sentenced to 14 years in prison. Family members said that he had marijuana for a medical prescription, not drugs. President Trump secretly instructed Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff to travel to Russia to negotiate the Kremlin's release of Fogel. After his arrival in the U.S., Fogel from Pennsylvania met with President Trump at the White House and called him a hero.
I want you to know that I am not a hero in this at all. And President Trump is a hero. These men that came from the diplomatic service are heroes.
And following the talks between President Trump and President Putin, Adam Boehler, the U.S. Special Envoy for Hostage Affairs, told reporters today at the White House that President Trump has also secured the release of an unnamed American citizen from prison in Belarus, along with 2 non-Americans, including a Radio Liberty European journalist. President Trump called Moscow's move a goodwill gesture to end the war. William Burns, President Trump's national security advisor, also said that it is a sign of Russia's sincerity and a sign of progress toward ending the war in Ukraine. When asked by reporters on Tuesday whether the U.S. had given up anything in return for Fogel, President Trump replied, "Not much," without offering additional details. President Trump described the deal with the Kremlin as very fair and very reasonable, while suggesting that it could be an important part of negotiating an end to the Russian-Ukraine war. Fogel's family thanked President Trump and others who worked to secure his release. Before he arrived, the family statement said, "Thanks to the unwavering leadership of President Trump, Mark will soon be back on American soil, free where he belongs. This has been the darkest and most painful period of our lives, but today we begin to heal." On Tuesday, President Trump welcomed King Abdullah of Jordan to the White House. The 2 leaders met at the White House and discussed Gaza. Before their formal talks, the 2 leaders jointly answered some questions from reporters. Earlier this month, President Trump floated the idea of a U.S. takeover of Gaza that would allow Palestinians to move out of Gaza and migrate to other Middle Eastern locations. But the proposal was quickly rejected by the Arab world. So reporters are trying to ask tough questions from different angles in the hope that President Trump will say something shocking that they can make a big deal out of. President Trump began by welcoming the king and speaking of his long-term friendly relationship with the King of Jordan. In response, King Abdullah stated that he believes there is a way to bring peace and prosperity to the region and that he would support President Trump in achieving those goals. Abdullah then said that Jordan would take in 2,000 sick children from Gaza. Then, a reporter asked how the U.S. is going to buy Gaza.
How is the U.S. going to own Gaza? Your White House has made clear taxpayer dollars won't be used for this. So what money are you going to use to buy Gaza?
We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace, and there's not going to be any problem, and nobody's going to question it. And we're going to run it very properly, and eventually we'll have economic development at a very large scale, maybe the largest scale on that site.
Later, another reporter followed up with a question about the president's previous remarks about buying Gaza.
Or that the U.S. would buy Gaza, and today you just said we're not going to buy Gaza.
We're not going to have to buy. We're going to have Gaza. We don't have to buy. There's nothing to buy. We will have Gaza.
What does that mean?
No reason to buy. There is nothing to buy. It's Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it.
Then another reporter asked President Trump where he intends for Palestinians to live.
Where exactly do you want them to live?
Well, it's not where I want them to live. It's going to be where we ultimately choose as a group. And I believe we'll have a parcel of land in Jordan. I believe we'll have a parcel of land in Egypt. We may have someplace else. But I think when we finish our talks, we'll have a place where they're going to live very happily. And
President Trump also said that although the U.S. supports Jordan and Greece a lot, he does not intend to use economic threats to reach an agreement this time.
No, I think we'll do something. I don't have to threaten with money. We contribute a lot of money to Jordan and to Egypt, by the way, a lot, to both. But I don't have to threaten that. I think we're above that. I do believe we're above that. So.
The King of Jordan, sitting next to President Trump, didn't completely reject the president's idea at the time, but he said that he needed to consider both Egyptian and Arab ideas to realize the plan in a way that works for everyone. King Abdullah, posted on X that the meeting was constructive, and he reiterated Jordan's steadfast position against the displacement of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. President Trump also said that he did not think Hamas would make the Saturday deadline for the hostage release because they want to play tough. President Trump warned if they fail to do so, all bets are off. It's official. In the United States, the Gulf of Mexico is no more. Before attending the Super Bowl on Sunday, President Trump flew Air Force One over the Gulf, and he declared the day the first ever Gulf of America Day. It is now in effect in all federal government departments, and it has been changed in the Centralized Geographic Names Information System to the Gulf of America. Google also updated its maps. Of course, the president of Mexico simply ignored the order and asked other countries to do the same. But if you don't follow the president's orders within the U.S., you may have trouble, at least when dealing with government agencies. The Associated Press was denied access to the Oval Office by the White House for the signing of the executive order on Tuesday because of its insistence of using the term Gulf of Mexico in its reporting instead of the new Gulf of America. The Associated Press explained its decision last month. They wrote, "The Gulf of Mexico has carried that name for more than 400 years. The Associated Press will refer to it by its original name while acknowledging the new name President Trump has chosen. As a global news agency that disseminates news around the world, the Associated Press must ensure that place names and geography are easily recognizable to all audience." Earlier in the day, the White House had warned the Associated Press that if it did not change its name for the waters, reporters on duty would be barred from the event. However, the Associated Press chose not to comply, and the White House ultimately turned them away. The Associated Press, in its statement, argued that the White House's practice interfered with press freedom. The statement reads, "It's alarming that the Trump administration would punish Associated Press for its independent journalism. Limiting our access to the Oval Office based on the content of Associated Press's speech not only severely impedes the public's access to independent news, it plainly violates the First Amendment." The White House Correspondents Association issued a statement saying that news organizations should have the right to decide how to report the news and called the Trump administration to immediately correct its practices, but the Associated Press were only barred from the signing of this executive order after choosing not to follow it. A federal appeals court on Tuesday dismissed an appeal that was filed by former Justice Department Special Counsel Jack Smith against two of President Trump's allies. The case, which has been going on for more than 2 years over the handling of President Trump's classified documents, is now completely closed. Smith accused the two Trump aides, Walt Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira, of obstruction of justice and making false statements in the case, alleging that they helped President Trump cover up the fact that he allegedly improperly stored classified documents in Mar-a-Lago after his first term as president. U.S. District Judge Aileen Cannon in Florida dismissed the Trump classified documents case last year, ruling that then Attorney General Merrick Garland's appointment of Smith as a special prosecutor was illegal. But Smith's team later filed an appeal. After President Trump was elected president, though, Smith withdrew the charges against President Trump. But he said he would continue to appeal the lower court's rulings as it relates to the two Trump aides. Both aides pled not guilty, as did President Trump. 2 weeks ago, the incoming Trump administration's Justice Department filed a motion with the Court of Appeals to dismiss all criminal charges against Walt Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira. On Tuesday, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit in Atlanta granted the Justice Department's request to dismiss the charges against the two former co-defendants. Yesterday, the FBI announced that it discovered more than 2,400 previously undisclosed records that are tied to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The revelation came just a few days after President Trump signed an executive order mandating the release of all classified documents concerning the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. the assassination files have been tightly under wraps, with the claims about potential cover-ups at the highest level of government. But on Friday, the White House was informed about the new documents that were mysteriously uncovered regarding the assassination of JFK. This was after the submission of a plan by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence to release the assassination records. Reportedly, these documents were not handed over to the original review board that was tasked with investigating the case. The FBI claimed that the discovery of the new documents was made possible by recent technological advances. There was a recent effort to digitize and inventory their records. So now, Congresswoman Luna has been chosen to lead the House Oversight Task Force on Declassification of Federal Secrets by House Speaker Mike Johnson and Chairman James Comer.
Together with the help of the White House, our intelligence allies, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, we will be conducting investigations into the following: the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King, unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAPs, unidentified submerged objects, also known as USOs, the Epstein client list, the origins of COVID-19, and the 9/11 files. This task force will be a beacon of bipartisanship. On the Republican side, Representatives Burchett, Boebert, Burleson, Crane, Gill, and Mace will be joining me, although I'd like to note that I'm expanding this to the entire governing body and will be allowing certain members to waive on. Our first hearing is set for March. The date will be announced soon, and we've already initiated close to a dozen communications with various agencies, to include Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice and the Secretary of State.
After meeting with the King of Jordan, President Trump returned to the Oval Office to sign an executive order giving Elon Musk's Doge even more power. The president ordered U.S. agencies to work closely with Musk's efforts to shrink the federal workforce, determining which government employees could be laid off and which functions could be eliminated completely. The newly signed executive order requires agencies to terminate 4 employees for every 1 they hire, and it calls on agency heads to work with Doge staff to develop data-driven plans to hire government employees only in critical areas. The president signed the executive order in front of the media, and Elon Musk was there, including his famous little son, X.
This is X, and he's a great guy, high IQ. He's a high IQ individual.
And he's got this, check out this cool chain he's got.
And we're going to be signing a very important deal today. It's Doge, and I'm going to ask Elon to tell you a little bit about it and some of the things that we found, which are shocking. Billions and billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think it's very important. And that's one of the reasons I got elected. I said, we're going to do that. Nobody had any idea it was that bad, that sick, and that corrupt. And it seems hard to believe that judges want to try and stop us from looking for corruption, especially when we found hundreds of millions of dollars worth, much more than that, in just a short period of time. And we want to weed out the corruption.
Wearing his Make America Great Again hat, Musk explained his work to reporters. He said, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country. Because Musk has been given more power than the average administrator, it's a matter of a public concern whether he will be impartial, especially when it might conflict with his potential interests.
Mr. Musk, the White House says that you will identify and excuse yourself from any conflicts of interest that you may have. Does that mean that you are in effect policing yourself? What are the checks and balances that are in place to ensure that there is accountability and transparency?
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, our actions, we post our actions to the Doge handle on X and to the Doge website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent. In fact, I don't think there's been, I don't know of a case where an organization has been more transparent than the Doge organization.
Musk compared the scrutiny that he faces to a daily rectal exam. He said the public can judge his potential conflicts of interest for themselves. And President Trump says that his team won't let Elon Musk vet areas that they think might conflict with his interests.
And if we thought that, we would not let him do that segment or look in that area if we thought there was a lack of transparency or a conflict of interest. And we watch that also.
President Trump asked Elon Musk to give some examples of the ridiculous fee expenditures that Doge has found. Musk said that Doge had found there are 12 people receiving Social Security benefits who are 150 years old. Other Social Security payments have gone to people with no identifying information. Also, the Trump administration said on Tuesday that it had fired 4 employees from FEMA, including its agency chief financial officer. This is because FEMA sent $59 million to luxury hotels in New York City in order to house illegal immigrants. Elon Musk also admitted that even Doge makes mistakes sometimes. For example, 2 days ago, it was reported that the federal government had sent $50 million worth of condoms to Gaza, and that turned out to be inaccurate.
Some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about. And that is really an enormous number of condoms, if you think about it. If it went to Mozambique instead of Gaza, I'm like, okay, that's not as bad, but still, why are we doing that?
And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, we thank you. But please double check to make sure that you're still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. We've also heard that some of you don't get notifications of our videos anymore on YouTube. So when you do subscribe on YouTube, please make sure to tap the notification bell as well. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.